This is TWiT.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. Certificates open doors to entry-level IT positions and promotions for those already in the field. CompTIA courses with IT Pro from ACI Learning make it easy to go from daydreaming about that career in IT to launching it. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to learn how you can elevate your skills.
Microsoft kind of teased this a few months back. We've known it was coming. You know, the old Teams was based on Electron. And so now they're announcing and will roll out broadly in the next couple of months the new version of Teams, which sounds like an Apple product, right? It's 2 times faster. It uses 50% less memory. Like, these are big numbers, right? This is, how awful was the other app? Well, have you used it? So actually, these things kind of make sense. The big thing to me, though, isn't so much, there's a new design, sort of. It still looks like Teams to me, but the big thing here is going to be the multiple profile support, which is something we've had on Teams on mobile, but not on desktop, which has never made a lot of sense. But we're getting it now finally on, like, what I would call big Teams, the mainstream desktop clients.
Big boy. We argue this is the solution to tenantitis.
Yeah. What's tenantitis? So wait a minute, what's that?
The tennis problem? No, wait.
Is that when your elbow hurts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your elbow definitely hurts because you keep having to switch between accounts to see which one can I actually go to this meeting on.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've got
exactly
the thing that says go join meeting, but I can't join the meeting because it's in one of the other tenants.
Right.
And for better or worse, because I'm often a beta tester on this stuff, I have a tenant that's just marked Microsoft.
There you go.
And what it does is break things. Like, never click on that. Because the scary part about the full Teams client is it'll actually change the security association of Windows when you switch that tenant. Like, kinds of apps suddenly break because I'm now a different person inside this machine.
Okay.
And so then you get into the problem between the Azure identity and the MSA, the original Microsoft identity. And heaven help you if you happen to use the same email address for both because you didn't know. And now the order of login matters.
Yes, this is the dumbest thing Microsoft has ever allowed.
Yep.
Someone on a corporate account, or what I call a work or school account, to use that as a Microsoft account. And then God help them, they start subscribing to Xbox services or making purchases or whatever it is. And it's like, guys, you're going to lose everything because there is no transition.
Listen, the identity problem inside of Microsoft is a legacy problem. It's decades and decades of stuff. I've been calling identity the third rail of Microsoft because it destroys careers inside of Microsoft. To try and solve that problem, it's unbelievably difficult.
I'm afraid what you have done is you've kicked the wood pile, and the cockroaches are going to start coming out, and the snakes, because million years ago, Microsoft offered this way in IE, I guess, where you could kind of switch between Microsoft accounts, right, on the fly. And then they got rid of it because there was some big problem. Who knows? And I'm talking this like 20 years ago. It was a long time ago. And people still ask for this, or they'll ask for they must someday offer the ability for me to transition from one Microsoft account to another. This would solve that work and school account problem where you turn that into a Microsoft account. You lost your job, you're leaving school, whatever it is. You're like, well, I want all that stuff. Can I move it over to an Outlook.com account? It's like, nope, you can't.
No. And you understand how this happened, right? Like, you think back to, before Azure at all, it's like each of these different Microsoft properties had its own identity stack.
Yep.
There were dozens of them.
Yeah.
The idea that we can consolidate that, like, that's third rail stuff,
Passport.
Man.
Remember that? Well, of course you remember.
But we were there. Yeah. They were trying to do OAuth long before OAuth. Of course, they also timed the announcement of that right as they were declared a pernicious monopoly. So that went well.
That's right.
It's like,
that's right.
Hey, we may be a monopoly, but give us all your identity information.
Well, this is right. So that's Microsoft had an initial, it was .NET Services, Hailstorm announcement where they actually had a bunch of partners show up. American Express was one.
Yeah.
They were all going to do this. And then within, I want to say 2-3 months, every one of them, but backed out. They were like, we're absolutely not doing this.
And it's not because the technology was bad. It was a PR catastrophe. The timing was horrifying.
Yep.
And it's kind of amazing that nobody sort of took a step back after those announcements.
It is.
And said, hey, this is going to go badly for us.
This is exactly the argument that companies did not make with Apple and Google with the mobile app store initially, at least not in force, which was, we don't want another company standing between us and our customers.
Right.
And with Microsoft, they said no. With Apple, they were like,
Well, Apple you may get in. Apple didn't set out to make the store. They needed to because the phone had been jailbroken. Yeah. And their whole pitch was, here's how we stop this from exploiting the phone. Right. We're going to take the liability that it go through this. We vet it. It's going to be okay. And we'll take 30%. Whatever, you know. Right. Oh, and you can't speak to your customer directly anymore? Yeah. That's just a given. Right? It was in the notes. Right. The other thing about the Teams announcement is it's the end of Electron.
Right. Yeah. Well, at least for Teams.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of other things use Electron. You think it's the end of Electron? That would be so great.
Well, I think it's a shot over the bow. My presumption when GitHub
it's also the end of UWP and all the other Microsoft technologies they rejected in favor of React, right?
Well,
they're all dead.
And they're all dead in a coffin called Maui. But you know, they're doing their best to keep. They're trying to keep that one alive. Like, at least they're consolidating there. We'll see how it goes.
Why didn't they? Just out of curiosity, do you know?
Why didn't they what?
Why are they using? I mean, I'm happy to see them using React, but isn't that a Facebook tool? I mean, I'm just surprised a little bit.
But they're just going where developers are. You know, yeah, I'm surprised they haven't adopted Flutter at this point. Honestly,
that would be hysterical.
Yeah,
it's also a phenomenally good tool, right? Like therein lies the real problem. Do you remember when they wanted to move all of the Bing blogs to an active service page solution, and the ASP guys didn't want to do it, so they moved to WordPress, and that meant actually using the MySQL backend too. Wow. So now the SQL Server guys are like, "What the?" You know. Yeah. If you just go best of breed for technologies, sometimes you send a message to your customers or prospective customers too. So, you know, they're definitely up against this. But the bottom line was there was an expectation that Electron being more closely associated with Microsoft, it was going to get dramatically better. And that didn't happen.
Electron's GitHub, right?
That's right.
So because Microsoft, but it predates Microsoft with GitHub.
Without a doubt.
They bought it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the assumption was now the Windows team and the Electron team are going to be friendly, and there's going to be optimizations that happen in Windows to allow Electron to perform better. It's like make Windows the best Electron host possible. Does not appear to have happened.
Yeah.
And the proof is they moved off of it. Right. I mean, the fact that they would move away from that and do an alternative rather than just like, you own the stack, why not improve it? Oh, what else is wrong then? That you've decided that the better way to improve this is to do it a different way.
Right. So the new one is React, isn't it? Is that the technology?
They replaced Angular. They're not using. I'm trying to find where I saw this. I mean, what I'm basing this on is a tweet or a tweet from somebody saying, look how Microsoft didn't use Maui, didn't use.
Listen,
UWP,
Leo, at this point, as long as it's not AI, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's React and WebView, right? Something like that.
And a lot of that is to do everything to do with timing, right? Maui is still very new. This has been in the works clearly for years, and so now they're finally getting to a place where they had to do it a different way, and so we went from Electron and Angular to WebView 2 and React,
which is more modern.
I don't want to get off on a massive sidetrack, but it's possible that the future of Maui, which is Microsoft's sort of Flutter-like cross-platform development suite or whatever, Xamarin Forms replacement, is this integration they have with Blazor, which is a web app technology, and maybe that's where that goes in the future. Maybe that this thing that is now kind of an add-on, optional piece, maybe that becomes
the logical implementation is WebAssembly, right? Like that is the logical way to do this. Yep. The advantage of operating in the context of the browser is you already have a security perimeter, right? When I put my IT guy hat on, what do I want? Stop installing software on my computer. They're all vulnerability problems. We already have a browser, so as long as you can run in that context, we know what the security envelope's like. Life is good. Just don't make it suck.
So in a very general way, what you basically just said was this uses the good part of the browser.
Right.
Whereas Electron is like the bad part of the browser. It's like we want something as big and heavy as Chrome, but
well, we're going to take dependency on Chrome, so you're going to see all these Chrome
without
instances. But we're also going to work in JavaScript so that we make the most unmanageable piece of code we possibly can.
Right.
And, you know, and you know, it may be somewhat functional and somewhat object oriented, but it certainly can consume a lot of memory. So let's run a bunch of it. Where
so you have used the new Teams, right? And do you actually? I mean, do you, aside from the fact that I know it looks a little different, but do you actually notice?
No, not a thing.
I was guessing because I mean, honestly, I feel like I feel like I would be sensitive to this. I hate Teams for a lot of reasons, but I've never once thought, I'm like, okay, like, come on, start up already, let's go. Like, it's never felt slow and day to day.
No. Well, the problems you have with Teams is it forgot all of your devices again. So now you're trying to.
It's all UX stuff. Yeah.
It's now trying to use the microphone on the camera and the speakers in the in the monitor.
That's a big update.
And
that's why.
And then the tenant, right? The tenant is the problem. And so the fact that they're tackling the tenant problems are smart. But it also shows Teeper & Co. that they can completely rewrite Teams and it's not the end of the world.
Did you Did you use a resource monitor just to see if it uses less RAM or?
I'm going to have to run it for a while. You know, it's the rot over time that matters.
Because that's the complaint, of course, with Electron is it's just a pig.
Yeah,
right.
And that isn't Electron. That's JavaScript.
Oh,
right?
is it
like
really?
That is those engines. Yeah. If you've got to use JavaScript, because JavaScript doesn't clean itself up particularly well.
But isn't so we've gone over this, I think, but Visual Studio Code, isn't that Electron?
It is.
It is Electron.
Are they rewriting it?
I'm telling you, this thing is fast and light and
very
maybe it's not
very well written, right? Like that. There's where they really leaned on what Electron's good at.
It may be that the complaint about Electron isn't really so much that it's a pig; it's just that it's a whole browser bundled into an app.
Yeah,
and
well,
you've got one for
a
each
focus,
app, and it offends people. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and it's a focus on cross-platform, which makes life hard, right? Like it's very difficult to make VS Code good everywhere, but that team has done a great job of it. I think the Teams folks are moving much more quickly with a much broader feature set.
Basically identical from what I can tell. I mean, it works really well cross-platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
I would argue Teams 3 will probably be WebAssembly. And because WebAssembly allows you to operate in that context, but bring your own language.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
It's a path. Like now that they've got control of this code base to the point where they're willing to do that, there are many other choices. But it also is a shot across the bow of Electron to say, be better. Because there are alternatives. And that we're always better off when there's more than one way to solve this problem.
Hey, Microsoft has a rich history of not using its own technology stack, so this is entirely in keeping.
Especially when they're problematic, right?
Yep. Okay. I am really curious to see this. I mean, I'm kind of stuck. I have to use Teams. I don't really have a choice. So.
No, you and I both, and that's sort of reality. But here we are using Zoom, and the new version of Zoom is WebAssembly.